Hi, everyone. Dave and Sean here recording our first ever episode of the Real Estate Edition together. Today on the show, we had a great chat with Canadian media trainer Warren Weeks. And Sean, this guy was fantastic. He brought a lot to the table, and I really liked some of the things he said.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked our discussion surrounding SEO, what realtors should and absolutely shouldn't be doing, and tips on the marketing techniques that work best.
Yeah, he really did touch on all those topics, including social media platforms, which ones to use, which ones to stay away from, that and much, much more. Have a listen, and we hope you enjoy.
You're listening to this month's episode of The Real Estate Edition with host Dave Bastl and OREA President Sean Morrison.
Our guest this week is Canadian media trainer Warren Weeks. Warren's the principal of 11 Strategic Communications, Inc., a full-service corporate communications firm founded in 2003. Warren, thank you for joining us on the podcast. Great to talk to you. Just a little bit of background for our listeners about your business and how you came to be.
Sure. So thanks for having me here, first of all. It's great to be back in the studio. I did an interview with Tim here last year. I am basically a one-person communications company or a media company. I started out in journalism many years ago, and I flipped to what we call the dark side of corporate communications in, I think, 1994. And I've been doing that ever since and on my own for the past 17 years. So I help companies tell better stories. It used to be primarily through written word. Then it turned into media relations. And over the course of the last few years, obviously social media has become a big part of that equation. So I don't try to get too romantic about the format, just trying to figure out what the results are and then helping organizations deal with that. So like I'm a lone wolf in this business and have been at it for about a quarter century or so.
You say companies. When you say companies, that's like all types of companies, because I saw your resume and it's quite
pretty
extensive.
Much every sector at this point. The only ones I didn't have were nuclear, I think, and aviation. And I've hit nuclear in the last 2 weeks, and I have a proposal to an aviation company right now. But it's been pretty much every company or every sector. Insurance, banking, large companies, small companies, associations. I've done work with companies like Manulife, Shopify. I was over in the UK last year doing some work with Gymshark. So the little engine that could. I purposely didn't staff up. I don't think I'd be a great manager, and I just like the craft. So that's what I've been. You have to be self-aware, right? And
for sure,
I don't want to spend my days sort of hurting people. I do have some subcontractors that I use, but it's basically just me kind of going out there doing my thing.
Now, Warren, I know you were with us at Peak Leadership recently speaking with our membership, and I also saw you speak at REIC in Montreal, I believe. So when it comes to realtors, you've got some experience there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the number one mistake, the thing that realtors just shouldn't do that they continue to do in social media?
Right. So we could talk about 8 hours just on this, and it's not just realtors. Obviously, we'll keep the comments related to that because we're here, but it goes the same thing goes for lawyers, accountants, dentists. There are many industries where professionals have given it a shot, and I would say the number one mistake is that they're using 1970s techniques and tactics. So direct mail, putting your face on the side of a bus, that sort of tactic. They're trying to use that in a social media realm. And so before I do these talks at conferences, I go in and I audit the people in the room. I try to find lists of folks who are going to be in the room, and I go and see in the week before, what are they doing on Twitter? What are they doing on YouTube? What are they doing on Facebook? What does their website look like, so that I can go in and have an understanding of what they're doing? And I have one of those big mailboxes. You walk down the street and unlock the thing.
Yeah, the super box.
I check it very infrequently. That's one of my sort of quirks of my personality. And I have to go with like a hefty bag and get my mail. And I have to say 3/4 of it is flyers from real estate agents. And they guess where they end up, right? I bring them to my house. I weed out my mail, and I immediately just toss them aside. And it's kind of sad, because if you think of the time and effort that someone put into designing it and taking the shot and taking the photo and looking at it and proofs and changes and the cost of printing it and having it distributed, and I would say most people are just tossing it in the blue box. I hope that's not a surprise to anybody who's listening out there. So I'm not saying that isn't a valuable tactic today. I think it is overpriced to some extent. And I think that what you don't want to do is use Twitter the same way, just taking a message and shoving it out. So I would see a lot of realtors on their Twitter page. They would have, a couple dozen or a couple hundred followers. Maybe their last tweet was 17 months ago. And if you scroll down, you would see open house, new listing, me with some important looking documents, or me with the sold sign in front of the house. These kind of like milestone kind of Facebook moments. And to me, that's the completely, can I swear on here or no? Probably no. It's like it's a butt backwards way to to do social media. So, we're using old school push tactics for social media. And, I've been hammering away and testing and working on this stuff for my own business as well as companies that I work with. And I can tell you that you need to completely flip it around. So, if I were to say, to distill this down to one lesson, and it's a hard one because people hear it and they go, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. And I'm like, no, you don't, because it took me almost 10 years of reading and looking and testing to really, really figure it out. So I would say the thing is this: if you're going to produce content for any platform, whether it's podcast, video, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, most realtors today are creating content with the intention of getting attention. Like, they're trying to create something that is going to get clicks or likes or some sort of reaction. The intention is engagement. The intention is like, look at my content. And that's the wrong way to do it. I would say your only criteria for creating content should be, does this create value for my audience? Who's my audience? If I'm selling real estate in Sault Ste. Marie, which is my hometown, I want to become the unofficial mayor of Sault Ste. Marie. I want to be creating value. So I will be putting out, and again, it doesn't matter what the content is. We can talk about platforms and channels, but the 10 things you need to know when looking for a new house. What do you need to know about this neighborhood, the Pea Patch or the West End or the East End or downtown? What are the schools in this area like? And me interviewing people in the area. What are the best 5 pizza places in Sault Ste. Marie? And you could do this for any town. What do you need to know about closing costs? How do you pick a good mover? I would create my own media station creating content like that. And what happens when you create content that actually produces value, and there's no sales job, there's no like I'm trying to weasel in my sales tactic. If you just do 100% value play for the audience over the long term, and I'm talking like over a couple of months, you'll see some moves, and over a couple of years, you will become the dominant player in that area. You just will, because most of the other people who are doing this kind of suck at it. Not to make it to be offensive. So you don't need to be the best. You just need to be better than your competition, and it's not that tough to do. So 100% value play.
We will be back after this short break.
Webinar Wednesdays is back. Tune in on March 25th at 1 p.m. for your next Standard Forms webinar, where the Forms team will discuss dealing with cooperation, representation, and Form number 320. Keep a lookout in your inbox for a registration link, and visit oreaforms.com for more information about all things Standard Forms.
Consistency is key as well. You mentioned that in your answer, that if you post something on Twitter, on Instagram, or you post a video on YouTube, your next video shouldn't be 2 months later.
Right.
And I like the idea, because one of my questions off of that answer was what should they be posting instead of the for sale sign or I have just sold and it was so much over asking. I like the idea of knowing that my realtor is part of the community.
Right.
And this is what he knows and this is how he specializes.
Or she. Yeah.
Well, when I say he, it's in general, of course.
I'm just like, I don't want to trigger anybody in the audience here.
So a big key of a lot of your seminars and communications is video.
Yeah.
Video for a real estate agent on social platforms. How important, and what should they be producing as far as video content is concerned? Video is almost like the number one thing to actually view on social platforms.
It's the easiest, certainly. It's easier than reading, right? Like I love the written word, but people want video these days. I did a video rant, a couple months ago. We had a situation with Ontario Power Generation. They had that alarm go off on that Sunday morning. And I did something I've been wanting to do for 10 years, but didn't have the sort of fortitude to do, or the guts. And for me, I'm a public relations person. I took a video camera, set it up on my house, and I did a Rick Mercer style rant about what happened that day, and it went bananas. It got like 7,000 or 8,000 views, tons of comments, including from Ontario Power Generation, and it's led to business for me and traction that I couldn't have gotten from an ad. So, there's two pieces. One is video. I'll touch on that in a little bit. The other is consistency. So, I think the importance or the value of the content is more important than consistency, but you kind of do need them both. When I'm auditing realtors, one of the things that I look for is, how many followers do they have? What sort of engagement do they have? How frequently are they posting? And a lot of them are posting a couple times a year, or they stopped in 2016 because they did it a couple times and they said, like, this isn't working. Like,
Right.
I haven't seen a bump, so I'm going to
I
go.
want to see results.
I'm
going to
go somewhere
weeks.
else.
Yeah.
I'm going to go keep doing my face on a bus
Sure.
or on a park bench. And I get that because you're looking for a tactic, and it takes time, right? It takes time to create this content. So, if you and what I want to do is give your listeners some actual examples of this. So first of all, for me, now I'm in a different business. I'm in the media training business. That's my primary job. So I have a lot of competitors who will go out and say, I am the best media trainer in Canada. You can get the best media training. I'm the most trusted. And to me, those, based on what? Do you have an Oscar for media training? Did someone give you an award for being the best? I don't think that's provable. So I go out and I say, I'm the busiest. And go on Instagram, and you can see, because every time I do a session, and I posted one yesterday, I have a picture of me in the training room. I have like my screen and the setup, and I don't show who the client is because it's confidential, but you can scroll through and see hundreds of them. You can see hundreds, and I tell you what city I'm in, and I tell you what sector I'm in. And so to me, that's the proof. If an organization wants to do business with me, they want to know that this isn't someone who does this 3 times a year. They want to know it's someone who does it all the time. So I would say put a content calendar together, sit down, and I know that realtors are busy. I know that they're going out at all hours of the day doing their work, and I know they can't create new time. I would take some time away from activities that are not maybe getting the top ROI, and I would create a bit of a content calendar. And, it doesn't need to be complex. I did a presentation training session last week. I did a little post on LinkedIn, almost like an afterthought. Like, here are 3 tips for when you have your next presentation. Not rocket science, not curing cancer. And it was one of my biggest posts of the year. Like, you never know. So like, I think you can't put enough content out there. It doesn't need to be Steven Spielberg. It can be nice and quick and easy as long as it provides value. For the video piece, we can get into more of the tactics. I think it is key. Understanding that not everybody is a video person, right? Some people like audio. Like, I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I think everybody should have one. I think pretty much everybody does at this point. But if you don't, I would really recommend it, and we can talk about how to do that. Some people really like the written word. Some people tell stories with pictures. Video is great if you have that kind of personality, but if you don't, that's going to come through too. Like, if you're really introverted and feeling weird and you're on camera, that's going to come off as a little weird. So now most realtors are sort of outgoing and sort of charismatic folks. The person I was going to reference, and then I'll stop talking in a second, is Sarah Johnston. Are you familiar with her? She's a realtor in Calgary, and she is the president of the Calgary Real Estate Board right now. In 2015, she was a struggling realtor, and she had been in the business about 10 years, and no one really knew of her, and she was trying to make her mark in the business, and she had a really bad day. She had 2 deals that she'd been working on for months fall through in one day, and she had been putting those same posts on Instagram of, like, open house and sold and like the stuff we think of, the stereotypical. And so what she ended up doing, because she was so devastated and sad and frustrated, is she opened up a bottle of wine and started, taking the edge off a little bit. She's drinking some wine, and she threw on some music, and she started dancing in her living room. And she set up a camera and recorded herself doing this little dance, and she did a little write-up about how frustrated she was about this day. And so she posts it, she forgets about it, and about a half hour later, she's like, oh my God, I got to go take that off. We've all had those moments,
Sure,
like, I got to get that post down.
Yeah, for sure.
So she goes over to her phone and she goes to take it off, and it's filling up with comments and likes. And not just from real estate agents in Calgary, it was like all over the world. And they're saying, I've had a day like that. And she's like, I think I'm onto something here. And it was about the genuineness. So if you want to know what to post, go check her out. Sarah Johnston is her handle on Instagram. She got about 20,000 followers. And the content that she puts out there, just look at it, see it. She's putting it out regularly. It's all about value, very little about selling. And it has really, really turned her business around. So that would be something I would recommend.
No, and Warren, I think that brings up a good point. I mean, this is obviously stuff that you have to keep personal. But when it comes down to it, is this something that you think transfers to all platforms? For instance, do one universal post, put it out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok all at the same time? Or is this something that you feel you need to tailor your content, not just to your audience, but to your platform as well?
For sure. That's a great question. And that's something you see a lot of people do. They'll actually automate it. Like they'll create a post on, let's say, Twitter, and then automatically post to Facebook or Instagram. I think that's a horrible idea. If you're doing that, go immediately and disconnect all those. You have to think about the psychology of someone. And I don't want to have everybody on all platforms. It's almost overwhelming. I would say pick one, master it, and then if you want to, add another. And you also have to think about who your audience is. If you're targeting senior citizens, I want to be on Facebook, right? Because that's where all our grandparents and parents are right now. I wouldn't want to be on like TikTok or Snapchat or anything like that. So that's something I would certainly want to keep in mind.
No, that's excellent. Now, when it comes down to LinkedIn, do you think that's a worthwhile platform for realtors to be? Because I see a lot of realtors on there saying, come to my open house, here's my new listing on LinkedIn. Is
Right.
that a good use of their time and effort, or do you feel their resources could be used better somewhere else?
I think if your objective is to try to drive awareness and sales, LinkedIn is probably not a priority. Like I wouldn't be spending, like for me, LinkedIn is probably my most important platform at this point because I'm a business to business and I'm a one-person business. And so search engine optimization and everything else, it helps. I would say at the very minimum that realtors should have a decent profile, because when I search for someone's name, that's one of the first things that comes up is LinkedIn, whether it's a good profile or a bad profile. And so what you don't want to see is that just a picture of a head without a photo and no bio and no connections, because as we mentioned earlier, before we started taping, the image that if you see someone who's posting 2 or 3 times a year about a sale that they made, like it doesn't look like they have a lot of activity going on. So I would say spend a few hours at the very least getting your LinkedIn profile to a place that it should be, and find some people who are crushing it in that area. Nice professional headshot, nice bio, try to make as many connections as you can just to have that there. Now, if you're looking to, if you aspire to be on boards or in the local community, if you're volunteering, I think that will help you as well. I think a lot of real estate agent websites need work too, but LinkedIn is one of the quickest ways to do it. I don't think you need to be putting content out there all the time. Now, again, if you're a written word person or if you experiment, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm constantly surprised about, I'll take a piece of content and throw it out somewhere, and very often nothing happens. And every now and then something pops. So I'm not saying don't do it. Like, try. Like, maybe take that article about now you have to look at it though through a career filter, right? So I'm going to have real estate content, but related to jobs. So, how to find a job in a new market if you're moving transatlantic or across the country. So you want to make sure that it's, when I see people on there doing workout advice on LinkedIn, it just seems like it's the wrong place, right? Unless you're looking at it through a work lens. Like if you say, here's how to build big biceps, that doesn't feel like it fits on LinkedIn. But if you're saying, here's how to stay in shape so you can be better at your job, that's a different take on that. So it's all, to me, contextual.
We will be back after this short break.
Join the OREA Realtor research community to have your say when it comes to the services OREA provides, the recommendations we make to the government, and the strategic priorities of the association. You'll receive exclusive content and be entered into monthly draws every time you complete a survey. Visit joinorearesearch.com to sign up and join an exclusive community of realtors making a difference. joinorearesearch.com. The OREA team has some exciting news to share. The Trust and Real Estate Services Act, TRESA, has passed third and final reading in the Ontario Legislature. After 10 years of fighting for higher professional standards, better education, and modern business tools like personal real estate corporations, our hard work has paid off. Thanks to you and your commitment to push your local MPP to vote yes to this historic bill, TRESA is on its way to becoming law. We'll continue to keep you updated every step of the way.
You're listening to the Real Estate Edition podcast. This is media trainer Warren Weeks joining us on the program. You mentioned interaction on social media, the importance of it, and you talked about auditing different realtors and so forth. I've looked at a lot of different realtors and what they do on social media, And one of the things that you've brought up in seminars that I've noticed that is not happening is interaction and the importance of it. Why should the realtor continue the conversation, and why is it that important that it shouldn't just be, this is me and I'm cemented off from the rest of society, so to speak?
Right. So that's the social part of social media, right? If we're gonna actually be using it as social media, it has to be a two-way conversation, as opposed to me taking a piece of content, slapping it up, and then just walking away. So one of the best ways to find out if someone is good at engagement is if you go to Twitter, either on your phone or on your computer, and the default view that you have on someone's page would be their public tweets. What I find really interesting is if you click one tab over to the right, it says tweets and replies. And that's where you get to see all of the two-way engagement. And again, if like, you know, I eat my own dog food here, so if someone wants to go to my page, you'll see public tweets. And if you just go one over to the right and click on tweets and replies, you'll get to see not only my public tweets, like, you know, the information that I'm putting out or retweeting, but you get to see the two-way conversations. And I would say, just ballpark, I'm doing about 80 to 90% of that two-way conversation. You know, I'm having people ask me questions. I'm having people chime in on things. I'm having people ask me to speak to their class. And those engagements are huge. Like if someone showed up to your office and they were sitting there, ding, 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 ringing the bell on the front desk, or if they left you a voicemail or sent you an email and you didn't respond to it, like most people would think that's unconscionable. I would never do that. But we're doing that all the time on social media. You know, you'll have a post on Facebook and someone leaves you a question like, what time will the house be showing until? And you don't even bother looking or checking because you're busy. That to me is a huge lost opportunity. And then the next 20 people are also going to see that comment was not responded to. So from a customer service point of view, I think there are huge, now again, time, right? You know, if you're going to do this, you need to do it. And so I just believe that the investment is worthwhile, and I would really recommend that people start engaging and doing that two-way content.
No, you're quite correct that a lot of times realtors don't have the time to be monitoring their social media 24/7. Is that something that when people respond to or need a response to a question that you would recommend a chatbot just to have that initial kind of outreach to them, and then the realtor can then follow up down the road? Is that advisable, or do you think that annoys people more than it helps them?
I can only tell you what I do, and you know, I'd ask you, would you want to be dealt with a bot? You know, would you, if you had a question and you put that into, if you sent that off to a realtor or a dentist or a plumber or a media trainer, if you got that, and you can tell, like even as good as they are, you can tell it's automated. I think the automation piece is a real turnoff. So, you know, one of the things that I pride myself on, again, I'm a one-person business competing against multinationals, and like, you know, there are so many people who do what I do in this country. And so when I get an inquiry from my website or by email, my goal is to respond to it within 60 seconds. To say, I got your note, thank you very much, I'll have a proposal to you later today. Or I got your note, thank you so much, do you want to set up a call for tomorrow? Depending if they've asked me for a proposal or just a general question. And very frequently, I get a comment back saying that's the fastest anyone's ever gotten back to me by email. And like email's been around for 25 years or so. And those, I end up on the whole winning about 70, 80, 90% of those. So like it's just one of those little pieces where people want attention, people want a reaction. And I guarantee you that a lot of the multinational firms they might be sending a note into are not getting back to them for a day or 2 days, or maybe they get some intern to get back to them. So, you know, how long does that take? You're sitting in your car, you're driving along, you get a note from someone asking you something about a house. Pull over, send them a quick note, or, you know, what you can even do if it's on Twitter, you can actually hit record, be a video, say, hey, thanks for the note. A lot of people don't know you can do this. Like if someone sends you a tweet, you can actually reply with video. Like talk about differentiating yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Very
It's Warren.
personal.
Got your note. Just want to let you know I'm heading off to an open house right now, but I got it. I will get back to you tomorrow. If you have any questions in the meantime, send them through. You will be hearing from me. Great. You do that quickly. Or if you're going to farm it out to a human being and, you know, co-op student, intern, not a robot.
Great, thank you.
You are a media trainer. When you're basing that to a realtor itself, watching one of your seminars, I noticed that you preach the 2 worst characteristics of a media interview: too smart, too nice.
Oh, right.
Does that still pertain to a real estate agent?
Like from a social media perspective?
From a social media perspective, or even in the interaction of getting to know that realtor on a one-on-one basis, or a first-time meeting. Do you take any of that, what you've taught, to this?
I think when it comes to social media, like, the skills to excel in a media interview and the skills to excel in social media, I think are kind of complementary but separate. I would say, like, the big thing that's difficult to achieve is authenticity and that creation of value, right? So, this is something that, again, I've been working at this personally for a decade, and I'm going to give your listeners someone that they should follow and listen to. And, if you've been to one of my talks, you've heard me talk about Gary Vaynerchuk before.
Yep.
This is a guy that, Gary Vaynerchuk is the top social media practitioner in the world. Oh, and now there was a guy that worked for him who was a personal trainer who used some of his techniques. But if you're not aware of him, he's Gary VEE on social media, and all of the content that he has in his brain is out there on YouTube and Twitter. It's searchable. He's got some books that are fantastic. He's the only person I would actually recommend when it comes to social media. And I would really recommend that your listeners just adopt that, watch that. And so it's been a journey for me, because I knew where I wanted to get to, but it took me 10 years to do that video in January. And to get to that point where you're creating content that isn't trying to game the system or trying to like slip that like sales message in there. Like, when I kind of let go of all of that and I said, I just want to create content that is going to be valuable to the person on the other end, that's when I saw a huge bump in business. Like in December, like many businesses, my business, you see that a lot of people in your client pool start going on holidays and they start going home, and like the activity starts going down and my sessions wind down, and there's that couple of week span where it's kind of dead. And I thought, what can I do with this span that would add value to my audience? And so, I was in Ottawa for a session. I missed my flight, so I'm waiting in the bar, having a pint, and I've got some time, which is rare. We have time on our hands, so I'm thinking, what can I do with this dead zone? And so I just sent out this tweet. I said, I'm going to take next Thursday, I think it was, or next Friday, and I'm going to give out half-hour chunks of free advice to any organization in Canada that wants it, for social media, marketing, crisis management, whatever. If you want free advice. And I set up a little calendar app that people could go into and log all these times. And I'm kind of half thinking no one's going to do it, right? Like, you send it out and it just sits there by itself off in a field. And within a day, they were all full. And so a week later, and that post ended up getting 6,000 or 7,000 views. And you can see on LinkedIn, you can see the companies and the roles, and these are like, heavy hitting clients. And so I ended up taking that day. Now I'm probably going to do that differently next time, because you end up speaking for 8 hours straight, and I sounded like, the Godfather at the end of the day. But to me, it's, first of all, it's a way to give back. And there was like no sales pitch at all. So there's no strings, no cost. I'm never going to approach you again. We're going to have our conversation. I'm going to give you as much value as I can. We'll hang up the phone. Merry Christmas. We'll see you later. And so ended up having 13 of those conversations. One person ended up bailing, or their schedule had an issue. I had 13 of those. And while it wasn't the plan, I ended up booking 3 sessions because of that day. So one of the organizations used their half hour to ask about my services, and another one that actually got value felt like they wanted to give back to me. So I'm doing a talk with them in April. So, I took a day that I wouldn't have been doing anything anyway. I probably been shopping at the mall or going to the gym, and I ended up turning it into 3 days because I tried to give without expectation.
Oh, that's very good. And maybe something realtors could use too, as far as free advice, because everybody's looking for that answer or has that question. Sometimes you don't have that. When you talk about staying ahead of the curve, as far as, you've answered a lot of it through the different means of Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, everything like that. Is there anything more that you could provide advice-wise to stay ahead of the curve? Because it's always what can I do differently? But you've touched on a lot of that. Have we missed anything as far as realtors in today's market staying ahead of it?
I would say forget being ahead of the curve. Let's just catch up with the curve at this point.
Sure.
Again, some realtors, I would say a very small percentage, are doing a very good job at this. But most of them, surprisingly to me, right? I just intuitively figured that they'd be doing better than they are. So the good news here is it doesn't take much to get better at this. And so I would ask people, and I'm stealing a line directly from Gary Vaynerchuk, but instead of seeing yourself as a realtor only, see yourself as a media company first and then a realtor second, and look at everything that you're doing. If you look at where people's eyeballs are, like, when I moved to Toronto, I would get on a GO train. Every single person on the train is holding a physical newspaper. It tells you how old I am. Today, 0 people are holding a physical newspaper. When you're driving down the road, that billboard that you spent thousands of dollars on, the person in the passenger seat is on their phone. And usually the person in the driver's seat is on their phone as well. So where are eyeballs? They're on the phone. They're on these devices. So create content, like, again, become the unofficial mayor of your community. And it's related to real estate, but in a separate way. Like, take the top 25, 30, 50 questions that you get from customers over the course of a year, when you're showing them through a house, and the questions that they ask you, like, you're probably getting the same couple dozen questions every time. Write those questions out, create content that creates value. Now, that could be a podcast. You could be talking into a microphone. It could be a video of you. Don't do it in your car. For some reason, people do these videos in their car. I saw one woman doing them while she was driving around the neighborhood. Just get a nice little backdrop. Write out blog posts. Whatever the format is, I don't really care. Just make it in a way so that people will start finding it. And ultimately, what you want to have is someone types in, how do I find a mover when that's the sound of me typing. Yeah. How do I find a mover when I'm going to a new house? How do I make sure that I don't get ripped off? And you write a 342 word or a 500 word piece or a 3-minute video about how to do that. No sales pitch at the end. Hey, call me, call Sharon, 555. None of that. Just create the content, put the value, and you have to just trust that the rest will fall into place. Now, do it consistently, and in a search engine optimization world, you will pop up number one. Like, when I started my business, I didn't exist on Google. I wasn't there. And through some very intentional and specific things, and taking that content and starting a blog in 2008 and putting content out, and now I have a podcast as well. And I can tell you all these things are in that awareness place, so that if you take your phone, and again, the proof is in the pudding, take your phone, look up media trainers in Canada, media trainers in Toronto, and if you scroll past all the ads, because Google keeps shoving ads and shoving the organic content down, I should be number 1 or number 2 in the country. There's no reason that should be the case. I'm competing against National PR and Edelman and Conan Wolf and all these massive multinational firms, and I'm one guy with a phone. And so, to me, the recipe works in any business, whether you're an electrician, a baker, a plumber, or a realtor.
No, and that's a good point, talking about SEO. I know there's a lot of realtors that are very interested in ranking up on Google searches. Can you give us a quick 5 points on how to increase your SEO?
For sure. I'll give you a couple. I don't know if it'll be 5. The first is, again, like I keep saying the same thing, but create great content that goes through some channel that you own. So whether it's a blog on your website, whether it's something that's connected to your Twitter account, have that LinkedIn page that has that great profile on it. But the biggest thing to me is create content, and don't try to jam and stuff keywords. Again, that's gaming the system, right? Like real estate, like that's the kind of stuff that I think Google's algorithm is smart enough to like weed out. So just take, I'm a born salesman, right? Like from the time I was a kid, I was hustling newspapers and t-shirts and fake watches for a while in university. I've sold pretty much everything. And so I get that imperative, that instinct to want to sell. But I would really say when it comes to this, you have to like let that go and put it aside and just create value for your audience. And the SEO will take care of itself, because people will start searching for it. They're going to click on it. They're going to read it. They're going to share it. And so I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but great content is the best way to get good at SEO.
Now, when it comes to SEO and content, is there one medium that's better than another? Is a blog better than a video? Is a picture better than a post with no picture or no video attached to it from an SEO standpoint?
Right. I quality to me over platform, but if you just look at where things are headed these days, like where do you want to be? A lot of people are not probably using Bing, I'm guessing. So if it's me, I'm just thinking about Google. It's not DuckDuckGo. It's not Bing. I want to be on Google. And so if you think about how does Google look at this information now? websites are often done through your, if you belong to an association or brokerage, you get like a free website. I would recommend, like I use Squarespace for my site. It's one of those services you go a couple $100s a year. It's pretty easy to make a site. Like I'm not, pitching them specifically, but the SEO is baked right in. So, and I have my blog is on my website and my podcast is on my website. So I have all that content there. The big thing to me is just create content that works. Now, an interesting point, we talked about video earlier.
Yep.
Who owns YouTube? Google owns YouTube. So video over the last few years has become more important. So if you're going to create video content, it's actually really important. First of all, make the video great. But second of all, the little introduction, like the copy piece and the tags, all of those need to be like, you have to think, what's Google going to be looking for? So don't just post a video with no description. You have to have a nice description about why people are going to be interested in this and put that up. One of the cool hacks that people can actually use, because YouTube is owned by Google, this really cool thing that you can do is you can find people like, and this is, we probably don't have enough time to get into the tactics today, but you can look it up on Google and find out. But you can actually, there's an ad feature where, like, let's say I live in Sudbury and I'm a realtor there. I can find people who are looking for new home listings in Sudbury, and I can take that search query and I can cross-reference that to YouTube. So the next person, the next time that person goes to YouTube, they might get a video from me saying, "Hey, do you live in Sudbury? Are you looking for a new home?" And because we usually just can't wait to click out of those ads because it's that knob with the Ferraris or something else, but if it's someone talking to me, "Hey, do you live in Sudbury? Hey, I live in Sudbury. Are you looking for a new home? I'm looking for a new home." The odds are that they're going to watch that. And so the ability for you, like I would say that's one of the few ad products that's actually great these days, is the ability to cross-reference Google searches with YouTube ads.
You talked about just on the advertising front there, you talked about how people don't see billboards anymore. They don't look at bus ads. Do people still notice advertising on Twitter and other social media forms? Or do they ignore that as well, even though, as you said, and as we all know, people are glued to their phones?
Right. So I think people ignore ads when they look like ads. What I would suggest, though, like, if take a portion of your ad budget, and I don't know what the typical realtor's ad budget is, but take a portion of that, and the places that I would deploy that today are probably Instagram and Facebook. And so the key here, because when we think ad, we think, "Hey, come on down. Here's my website. Click on this. Open house." Take the content I was talking about earlier, how to find a mover, how to get mold out of your attic, how to stage your home, the best schools in this neighborhood, and put money against that content and let that content show up in the eyeballs of people that you're looking for. And the ability for you to target your audience has been unprecedented. So I would say the advertising feature, yes, but don't make it sound like an ad. Make it content.
Warren, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Where can they find you on social media platforms? Because you better be on all of them.
Right. I would say just look up Media Trainers in Toronto. If I don't show up on the first page, then don't listen to anything else I had to say today. But weeksmedia.ca.
Weeksmedia.ca. Did you get a chance to go back to Sault Ste. Marie for the Winter Carnival?
I haven't. I've been back to the Sioux. I haven't been there for Bon Sioux, but
Okay.
my sister did the Bon Sioux polar bear swim a couple years in a row, so that's something I'm not.
I was going to have to ask you. I thought maybe
know.
you'd have a Bon Sioux story, Mr.
I
Bon
wish.
Sioux story,
I wish.
right?
Not lately. No.
Warren, pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Visit OREA.com/podcast for more information, links, and a full list of our episodes to date. New episodes are out the second Tuesday of every month.